Hello there, and welcome to the Sleepless Scientist, a quiet corner in the cosmos where curiosity becomes a lullaby and thought drifts like starlight across still water. Tonight's journey is a gentle one, yet vast. We'll wander through the strange question of whether your mind merely observes the universe or helps write it. Before you settle in, maybe dim the lights, breathe once or twice, and let the room soften around you. If your thoughts start to drift, let them. We'll still be here, unfolding quietly. Right now, something subtle is happening. You're hearing my voice, but you're also hearing another one. The silent narrator inside your head. The one that reads even before sound begins. That is consciousness. It's invisible, untouchable, and yet it holds everything you know. Scientists can measure blood flow in your brain, watch electrical waves sweep across the grey folds behind your eyes, but none of that shows this presence, the one that knows it's alive. For centuries we've tried to locate it, to point at the part of us that feels like me. The Egyptians believed the soul lived in the heart. Ancient Greeks imagined it as the breath of the gods. Philosophers like Descartes declared, "I think, therefore I am." But what if he was wrong? What if thinking isn't what makes you real, but awareness itself, the feeling of being before any word or thought appears? Imagine a child watching rain slide down a window. No analysis, no story, just colour and movement and quiet wonder. That simple noticing is consciousness in its purest form. It doesn't judge, it doesn't grasp. It simply is. And yet this isness has haunted every field of study we've built. We can name the molecules that spark emotion, but not why those sparks give rise to joy or sorrow. We can simulate a neuron's firing pattern on a computer, but no machine can yet feel heartbreak or nostalgia. Reductionism, the great method of modern science, has given us extraordinary tools. We've sliced nature into smaller and smaller pieces until we reached atoms, then electrons, then the faint hum of quantum fields beneath them all. Each layer revealed another, and still the mystery deepened. Because even if we could map every neuron and record every chemical in your brain, we would still be left with the simplest, strangest question. Why does it feel like something to be you? To understand a symphony, you can study every instrument, every note, every vibration in the air. But none of that explains the way a melody lifts your chest or brings tears to your eyes. Somewhere between the mechanics and the meaning, something else is born. Consciousness sits exactly there, between motion and music, between fact and feeling. This puzzle is sometimes called the hard problem of consciousness. Not because it's complicated in the mathematical sense, but because it seems to reach beyond measurement. How do you explain red to someone who's never seen it? How do you weigh the warmth of love or the taste of memory? They exist, undeniably, but not in the way gravity or magnetism exist. They are the interior side of the universe, the first-person view that science, built from the outside, struggles to capture. Yet that struggle is beautiful. It's the reason the poet and the physicist often meet in the same silence. Both are searching for a language wide enough to hold wonder. Perhaps consciousness isn't something science must conquer, but something it must learn to listen to. Picture yourself sitting beside a small fire in a quiet night. The flames sway and crackle. For a moment, you're not the watcher, but the warmth itself, flickering and alive. That sensation of merging, the line between you and the world blurring, that too is awareness. Some ancient traditions call it Atman, the self that holds all selves. In their view, consciousness isn't inside your body at all. Your body, your thoughts, even the stars above are inside consciousness. Like waves inside the sea, they appear and vanish, but the water remains. Modern science, cautious and careful, describes instead the chemistry of that moment. It tells us that the glow of the fire stimulates photoreceptors, that heat activates nerves, that the brain's limbic system lights up to mark pleasure. It's all correct, and yet somehow incomplete, because none of it touches the feeling, that quiet recognition that says, I am here. The machinery and the mystery are both true. They're two faces of the same truth, seen from opposite sides of the mirror. And maybe that's where our story must begin, not in opposition between science and spirit, but in their meeting place. The place where equations turn into images and measurements whisper back with meaning. Consciousness is the bridge. It's the moment matter begins to notice itself, the instant the universe looks inward and finds eyes. We've spent centuries exploring the outer world, mountains, molecules, galaxies, but the inner one remains as vast. What is the observer made of? Is it just the echo of neurons, or could it be something deeper, woven into the universe itself? If we follow this thread far enough, we find ourselves stepping into the smallest spaces imaginable, where certainty melts into possibility, and what is real begins to shimmer between states. In the chapters ahead, we'll wander into that realm. We'll see how a particle can be in two places at once until someone looks, how distant objects can act as if they're touching, how time itself may be a story consciousness tells to make sense of eternity. But for now, stay with this simple question, the one that hums behind every heartbeat. Who is the one aware of all this? Perhaps the search for the mind isn't a journey outward at all. Perhaps it's the slow remembering of something you already are, the quiet witness that was there before thought began, and that will remain when thought finally falls silent. We've taken the first steps, listening to the quiet voice inside, feeling the presence that watches our thoughts. Now, let's wander a little deeper into the question of how the universe produces this awareness, and where science's bright lantern might still leave shadows. Reductionism, the approach that has built our modern world, tells us to break things into their smallest pieces, to examine each part, to understand how it works, and it has done wonders. We can trace the path of a neuron firing when you smell coffee, follow the sparks in the brain when you recall a song, or measure the way chemicals shift when you fall in love. We can map the anatomy of memory, chart the flow of electrical impulses, watch emotions bloom and fade across the cortical landscape. And yet, when we step back, there is a silence where meaning should be. All the tools of science, the scans, the sensors, the precise instruments, cannot reach the experience itself. The warmth of coffee in your hands, the ache of nostalgia, the quiet awe when looking up at stars, these are not simply chemical reactions. They are something more. They are the music, not the notes. They are the moment the symphony begins to breathe. Reductionism explains the how, but not the why. Imagine a painter studying the individual strokes of colour on a canvas, measuring the thickness of paint, the angle of the brush. He can describe every brushstroke, yet the feeling the painting evokes, the way light and shadow shift across your heart, is invisible to his instruments. Consciousness, in this sense, is the painter's brush, and the sensation it evokes at once. Part process, part magic. It cannot be fully captured by dissection or measurement. Even when we look at the brain with the most advanced technologies, it offers only shadows. We see patterns of neurons lighting up, hear the hum of signals racing along networks, watch memory trace a path through grey matter. But the self, the eye that experiences the smell, the sound, the sight, is elusive. It is not housed solely in any one part, and it does not appear on any scanner. Here, the reductionist approach reaches its limit. The more we try to pin consciousness down, the more it seems to slip between our fingers, like smoke or a reflection on water. This is not to diminish the power of science. Without it, we would not know the chemical basis of emotion, the structure of synapses, or the mechanics of vision. But it is to recognize that something essential, what philosophers call qualia, remains beyond measurement. Qualia are the raw sensations, the feeling of being alive, the texture of experience. They do not reduce neatly to formulas or pathways. They insist, quietly, that the universe has a dimension that is lived, not merely observed. And so the question arises, might the explanation for consciousness require a new perspective? Perhaps we are looking too narrowly, searching only within the neurons themselves, only within classical physics. Perhaps we need to peer into the spaces beneath, into the subtle dance of particles and waves, where the world is not fixed, where matter and possibility swirl together, where the observer may play a role that has nothing to do with instruments or electrodes. The quantum world, invisible to our eyes, offers a landscape that defies the rules of everyday life. Atoms and subatomic particles are not solid in the way a rock is solid. They exist in states of possibility, occupying multiple positions at once until observed, until something measures them, collapses their wave of probability into a single, definable state. Superposition, entanglement, uncertainty. All these phenomena challenge our intuitive notions of reality, and in them lies a subtle suggestion. Perhaps consciousness itself, the simple act of awareness, is woven into the way the universe unfolds. Of course, we must tread carefully. Physicists emphasize that measurement does not require a human mind, that interactions with any system, detectors, environments, photons, can produce the same effects. Yet the poetic resonance remains. The universe, in some sense, only becomes defined as it is perceived. This is Wheeler's participatory universe, an idea that does not require magic, but that invites wonder. The act of noticing, of being aware, is intertwined with reality in ways that science is only beginning to explore. Let us consider the analogy of a story being written. If each particle is a word, then every act of observation is a punctuation mark, a pause that brings meaning and clarity. Without those marks, the narrative is a blur of letters and ink, possibilities waiting to become actual. Consciousness, then, may be like the hand that guides the pen, shaping the unfolding tale not arbitrarily, but by simply attending to it, by registering its presence, by being aware. Reductionism in this vision is still vital. It tells us which letters exist, which patterns recur, which rules govern the physical world. But it leaves the story of experience, the living, breathing narrative, beyond its grasp. That is why we must hold both perspectives, the mechanics and the mystery, the chemistry and the wonder. One without the other is incomplete. Together they illuminate a path into a deeper understanding of being alive, of seeing, and perhaps of participating in the world itself. We can carry this reflection forward as we continue our exploration. The neurons are real, the particles are real, but so is the subtle, luminous presence that is aware of them. The observer and the observed are not separate, they are threads in the same fabric. And in this realization, we begin to glimpse a possibility that our understanding of the universe is inseparable from our awareness within it. Every thought, every heartbeat, every glance outward may be a quiet act of shaping, a gentle interaction with the unfolding cosmos. Now that we've paused to consider the quiet witness within, let us venture gently into the strange spaces beneath the visible world. Imagine zooming far past the surface of your skin, past the organs and cells, past the atoms that make up every object you see. What once seemed solid begins to dissolve. A chair, a rock, your own hand. These are not the fixed things we thought they were. Look closer, and matter is mostly empty space. Electrons whirl around nuclei in ghostly clouds, and nuclei themselves are tiny bundles with vast emptiness inside. What we perceive as solidity is merely the shimmering dance of particles and the rules that guide them. Within this invisible landscape, the world does not follow the rules we expect. Particles exist in many possible states at once. An electron can spin in two directions simultaneously, a photon can travel along two paths at the same time, and until a measurement occurs, reality is suspended between these possibilities. This is superposition, the hallmark of the quantum world, a state of not this or that, but both at once. It defies intuition, yet experiments show it is real. The very device that powers your phone, your GPS, and the computers around you relies on this subtle strangeness. And here is where the story becomes both simple and profound. The act of observation seems to matter, not in a mystical sense, but in a literal one. When a measurement occurs, whether through an instrument, a photon interacting, or an awareness registering the event, the superposed possibilities collapse into a single outcome. The blur becomes a point, the wave becomes a particle, a decision is made, a path chosen. The world as we experience it emerges in part through these tiny acts of looking or interacting. Picture a lone photon approaching a barrier pierced by two narrow slits. Left unobserved, it behaves like a wave, flowing through both slits at once and forming an interference pattern on the screen behind. Watch the photon with a detector, however, and it chooses one slit or the other. The pattern changes. The world resolves itself into one path. Reality appears to wait for the act of noticing, as if the universe itself pauses in suspense. This is the observer effect, a cornerstone of quantum physics. It does not demand a human mind to function. Any interaction that entangles the particle with its environment can produce the same effect. Yet when we imagine it poetically, as John Wheeler suggested, consciousness becomes a participant. The universe does not merely exist, it becomes. Each observation is a soft pen stroke in the unfolding story of reality. Let us consider an everyday metaphor. Imagine a theatre stage shrouded in mist. Props, scenery, and actors exist in hazy potential, their outlines blurred. Only when the spotlight falls, only when the director calls the scene, does the world snap into focus. Superposition is the mist, observation is the light. We are not asking for magical powers, we are asking our attention to become like the gentle beam of that spotlight, helping define what appears. This way of thinking leads naturally to Wheeler's participatory universe, a vision in which observers are not incidental, but essential in shaping the unfolding cosmos. Matter does not simply drift along in a pre-written script. It waits, poised between possibilities, until the act of interaction brings it into form. This idea is subtle and easily misunderstood. It is not a claim that human minds create reality in the sense of the wishful thinking. It is an invitation to imagine that the universe is a dynamic, responsive system, and that observation, awareness, has a real role in the emergence of phenomena. We might also imagine that time itself, the flow from past to present to future, behaves differently at these scales. In the quantum realm, events do not always have a single, linear sequence. Particles may influence each other in ways that seem to ripple backward or sideways through the moments we call time. Superposition, then, is not just a statement about space or location, it is also a statement about possibility, sequence, and becoming. The world is alive with potential, hovering just out of full definition, waiting for context, waiting for attention. To grasp this, think of tossing a pebble into a still pond. Ripples expand outward in concentric circles, each wave a possible path the water might take. Now imagine a gentle hand hovering over the pond, guiding some waves, letting others dissipate naturally. Observation, in this metaphor, does not force the water, but it shapes the patterns that emerge. In quantum physics, every particle behaves in a similar way. Countless potential outcomes exist, and interaction selects among them, bringing reality into the sharp focus we experience. We can extend this gently to the mind itself. Consciousness may be like a wave over a quantum sea, noticing and shaping, aware of possibilities and subtly interacting with the unfolding moment. We are not magic. We are part of a world that responds to measurement, interaction, and attention. Every gaze, every thought, every act of noticing participates in a universe of possibilities, helping reality settle into the forms we encounter. And yet, in this soft reflection, we remember to tread lightly. Physics is precise, but its poetic echoes are delicate. Superposition, entanglement, and collapse are mathematical truths, but their translation into consciousness is metaphorical. We do not yet have evidence that awareness alone collapses waves, or that thoughts ripple across galaxies. What we do have is a subtle suggestion, a bridge between the measurable and the felt, between the world outside and the quiet witness within. So when you look around and see the world in focus, remember that at the smallest scales, it once hovered between possibilities, and somewhere inside you, the same quality of attention that notices a bird landing or the flicker of candlelight is the same gentle act that participates in the unfolding dance of matter and light. Superposition is not just a principle of physics, it is a reminder that reality is not finished until it is seen, and that our presence matters softly, invisibly, in the ongoing story of the universe. As we step gently from the subtle dance of possibilities in superposition, let us linger for a moment on the role of the observer. In the quantum world, measurement does more than reveal what is. It helps define what becomes real. Imagine a universe poised like an unread book, its sentences blurred, its chapters unwritten, until someone opens the cover and begins to read. Each act of awareness, each gentle observation, turns possibility into actuality. John Wheeler called this the participatory universe, a vision in which the cosmos is not a static backdrop, but a story unfolding in the presence of those who perceive it. Consider a single particle approaching a barrier pierced with two narrow slits. Left unobserved, it spreads across both openings, behaving like a wave and forming an interference pattern beyond. Introduce a detector to observe its passage, and the particle collapses into a definite path. The world resolves itself in that instant, as if reality had been waiting for a gentle nudge from attention. The universe, it seems, does not merely exist independently of observation. In subtle, precise ways, it responds. Yet this does not mean the mind holds magical power over the cosmos. Measurement in quantum physics does not require a human brain. Any interaction capable of producing a correlation, whether with a device, a photon, or the surrounding environment, produces the same effect. Still, Wheeler's vision invites us to contemplate a poetic resonance. If interaction and observation define reality, then perhaps awareness, in its purest form, is part of the story. The act of noticing, whether by a person, an instrument, or a subtle field of interaction, participates in the universe's becoming. To understand this more softly, picture a theatre in shadow. The stage is shrouded in mist, props and scenery blurred in uncertainty. Only when the light shines on an actor, when a moment is called, does the scene become clear. Superposition is the mist, measurement, observation, attention. It is the light that allows the world to appear, and consciousness, in its quiet, patient way, becomes the hand that gently illuminates the unfolding tableau. The participatory universe extends beyond the tiniest particles. It speaks to the subtle web of connection across scales. Each act of observation, each ripple of attention, may resonate through the unfolding patterns of reality, guiding the dance of matter and possibility. Just as a painter's brush brings colour to canvas, awareness brings clarity to the universe. Reality is not passive. It listens, it responds, it waits, and we are, in some sense, part of that dialogue. Now consider time. In our daily lives, past flows into present and present flows into future as a steady river. But in the quantum realm, time is less a straight line than a looping, twisting ribbon. Particles can influence one another in ways that appear backward or sideways, slipping around the boundaries of cause and effect. Superposition and entanglement suggest a tapestry of interconnected moments, where one thread can affect another across vast expanses. In such a world, the observer's role is even more intriguing. Awareness may not only mark events, but may anchor them, giving coherence to the river of experience. Imagine walking through a forest at dusk. The sunlight slants through the trees, dust motes shimmering in the air. You pause to notice a leaf trembling in the wind. That simple act of attention does not change the leaf's motion, but it changes your experience. In quantum physics, the effect is literal. Observation interacts with the system, shaping the outcome. Here, the analogy softens the concept, allowing it to be understood not as mystical power, but as participation in a responsive universe. This interplay between observation and reality encourages a new perspective on consciousness itself. What if the awareness that notices the leaf, the star, or the dance of photons is not separate from the universe, but entwined with it? Science tells us the world operates through forces and fields, probabilities and waves, yet it also tells us that interaction defines reality, that measurement collapses possibilities into a singular outcome. The poetic reading emerges naturally. Perhaps consciousness and the cosmos are two threads of the same fabric, one weaving the other into form. At the same time, we must tread lightly. These ideas are evocative, but science maintains its rigor. Observation, measurement, and interaction in physics do not require human intention. There is no evidence that thoughts alone collapse wave functions. The participatory universe is as much a framework for wonder as it is a metaphor for engagement with the world, and yet it hints that awareness, yours, mine, the quiet witness inside every being, matters in subtle ways. Each glance, each reflection, each moment of noticing participates in the unfolding of reality, however gently. So, as we continue, let us carry both humility and wonder. The universe is precise, elegant, and indifferent in its laws, yet it opens space for participation. Observation matters not because the mind exerts control, but because interaction defines reality. Consciousness becomes a partner in the dance, soft but undeniable, shaping the story through presence, attention, and awareness. And in this gentle interplay, we begin to glimpse a world that is alive, responsive, and full of subtle surprises. Now that we've seen how observation shapes reality, let us turn our attention to a phenomenon that Albert Einstein once famously called spooky action at a distance. It is a strange, beautiful, and confirmed feature of the quantum world known as entanglement. Imagine two particles born together, linked from the very beginning. Separate them by oceans, by continents, even by light years, and yet when one is measured, the other responds instantly. Their fates are correlated in ways that defy the familiar rules of space and time. At first glance, this seems impossible. How can something act faster than light? Faster than the ticking of clocks? Yet repeated experiments, increasingly precise over the decades, have confirmed that entangled particles maintain this connection. It is not communication in the ordinary sense. No message travels, no signal pings from one particle to the other. Instead, there is a subtle, inherent unity that is revealed the moment an interaction occurs. The particles, though separate in location, share a kind of mutual awareness built into their very being. To translate this into something more tangible, imagine two musicians playing the same note, even though they are in separate rooms. When one strikes the string, the other responds instantly, not by hearing, but because the music itself binds them. Or consider the ocean. A wave rises in one place, and far away, another crest moves in perfect harmony, as though the water itself remembers the rhythm. Entanglement is like that, an invisible, instantaneous resonance threading through the fabric of reality. Now let us gently extend this idea to consciousness, not as a claim, but as a speculation framed with care. If matter itself can be entangled, If correlation can exist across vast distances, might awareness itself be non-local? Could minds, in ways we do not yet measure, resonate with one another across space and time? Perhaps your fleeting thought of someone followed by a coincidental call from them seconds later, or the sudden intuition of an event far away, are poetic echoes of a deeper connectivity, a reflection of the entanglement we observe in physics. Of course, science remains skeptical. These experiences cannot be reliably measured or repeated, and the laws of physics as we know them forbid telepathic signals. Yet the metaphor is compelling, and it offers a bridge between the quantum world and the subtler threads of human awareness. Ancient traditions have long hinted at similar ideas, expressed in language of spirit rather than mathematics. The Upanishads in India spoke of the Atman as not only the self, but as the same as Brahman, the universal consciousness. Taoist writings describe an infinite current weaving through all things, a subtle interconnection underlying apparent separateness. Shamans of the Andes and the Amazon moved with spirits of plants and stars, feeling the threads that connect all life. What these cultures intuited with meditation, ritual, and contemplation, modern physics is only beginning to hint at with entangled particles and zero-point fields. 2 paths, 2 languages, yet perhaps tracing the same unseen structure. Imagine that your awareness, delicate and persistent, is like a single string vibrating within this cosmic web. Each thought, each feeling, each intention resonates through this invisible field. You're not merely a drop of water in an ocean, but a wave cresting within it, moving, shaping, responding, yet inseparable from the whole. The very notion is both humbling and uplifting. It suggests a reality where separation is an illusion, where the individual and the collective are intertwined, and where each conscious act may ripple through an intricate unseen tapestry. This vision of entanglement extends naturally into empathy and shared experience. When you feel another's joy or sorrow, when a parent instinctively responds to a child they cannot see, these are not direct transfers of energy, but reflections of an ancient intuition. Life is deeply interconnected. In the quantum analogy, the same underlying patterns that bind distant particles could, in metaphor, be mirrored in the ways consciousness experiences connection. The universe may be far stranger than we ever imagined, yet in its strangeness, it holds a quiet poetry. And here is the subtle shift we must make for our bedtime reflection. This is not about claiming literal telepathy or mystical powers. It is about opening the imagination gently, exploring what the universe allows, and appreciating the resonance that exists within the natural laws we do understand. Entanglement reminds us that reality is less rigid than it seems, that outcomes are tied to interactions, and that connection is built into the very foundations of existence. Everywhere we look, particles obey rules that seem foreign, counterintuitive, and yet precise. Entanglement is one of the most striking examples. It tells us that distance is not absolute, that the universe is a web of relationships rather than isolated points, and that even at the smallest scales, everything is woven together. If we allow ourselves to dream softly, to extend metaphor without claiming authority, it invites us to consider that consciousness may participate in the same underlying fabric, not as a tyrant controlling outcomes, but as a note resonating in an ongoing symphony. And so we end this reflection on entanglement with a sense of awe and humility. Matter is entangled, yes, but so too, perhaps, is awareness. Our thoughts and feelings may not stretch across light years in measurable ways, but they inhabit the same universe as these subtle connections. In noticing, in attending, we are participating in something far larger than our individual selves. The universe is alive with possibility, and our consciousness, in quiet ways, is part of its unfolding. Having explored the remarkable phenomenon of entanglement among particles, let us now gently consider what it might mean for consciousness itself. In physics, entanglement shows us that two particles can remain connected even across vast distances. They respond to each other instantly, not through signals we can detect, but through a subtle, inherent correlation. Now imagine, if you will, that awareness, our quiet, persistent consciousness, is not strictly confined to the boundaries of the skull. What if it too resonates, linking with others and with the universe in ways that are invisible but real in a different sense? This is not a claim that thoughts can move faster than light, or that minds can literally telegraph across space. Rather, it is a poetic reflection inspired by the structure of the quantum world. The universe appears to be a network of interconnections, a vast tapestry of relations that does not respect ordinary distance. Could consciousness, in its subtlety, be entangled in a similar way, participating in a hidden field that reaches beyond individual bodies? It is a question that combines science, philosophy, and imagination, a place where we may quietly wonder without claiming certainty. Consider an example from everyday life: the sudden intuition of a loved one calling, the feeling of another's mood across a room, or the sense that someone knows what you're thinking even before you speak. While psychology and coincidence explain some of these moments, the idea of a subtle, non-local awareness provides a metaphorical lens to imagine them differently. Perhaps our minds are like tuning forks, vibrating in a shared field, resonating without direct contact. Each thought, each feeling is a note in a symphony that is larger than any single instrument. Across cultures and centuries, similar ideas appear in different languages. The Upanishads in India spoke of Atman, the self that is the same as Brahman, the universal consciousness. Taoist texts described an infinite current weaving through all things. Indigenous shamans in the Andes and Amazon perceived a living cosmos where rivers, mountains, and stars are active participants, their existence felt as a continuous dynamic presence. These perspectives, though expressed in metaphor and ritual, echo the surprising interconnectedness revealed by quantum physics. Two paths, two languages, yet both explore the subtle unity underlying the apparent separateness of life. Imagine the mind as a gentle wave on this cosmic sea. Each ripple is a thought, a feeling, a quiet act of noticing. Individually they are small, transient. Together they resonate, merge, and influence the field they inhabit. In this view, no consciousness is entirely isolated. We are nodes within an intricate dynamic network, each of us a crest in the vast sea of awareness. This does not mean we are magically omniscient, but it invites us to consider that our awareness may already participate subtly and continuously in the unfolding of reality. Entanglement and non-locality in physics provide an evocative analogy, but it is important to remain careful. There is no experimental evidence that human consciousness directly entangles with other minds or with distant events. Yet the metaphor is valuable, especially for gentle reflection, because it bridges the gap between the measurable world and the lived experience. In contemplating this possibility, we are encouraged to feel connection, to sense resonance, and to notice the quiet patterns that thread through our interactions, our environment, and even our inner life. Think of a single drop falling into a vast pond. The concentric ripples expand outward, touching distant edges, intersecting other ripples, merging with the rhythm of the water itself. Each drop is a single consciousness, yet every ripple interacts with countless others in ways both subtle and continuous. Our thoughts may not travel light years, but in the network of life, in the shared field of relationships and resonance, every attention, every gentle act of noticing creates soft waves that shape the patterns around it. If consciousness is indeed part of this vast, responsive field, then perhaps we're not only observing the universe, but participating in it. The subtle interplay of thought, perception, and experience may echo the hidden connections between particles, offering a quiet, poetic sense of entanglement that is both personal and collective. We are not solitary observers in a distant, indifferent cosmos. We are part of the intricate weave, threads that are distinct yet inseparable from the whole. In this reflective space, we might sense our presence as a gentle vibration in the universal web, a quiet resonance in a sea of possibility. Every perception, every inward glance, every whisper of awareness may ripple softly through the tapestry, contributing to the ongoing dance of reality. The science is precise, yet the experience of reflection, attention, and participation is beautifully human. We are participants, not in the sense of control, but in the sense of subtle presence and resonance, intertwined with the unfolding of existence itself. As we rest in this contemplation, it becomes clear that the world is not merely observed, it is felt, attended, and lived. The hidden threads connect the seen and the unseen, the measurable and the felt, the individual mind and the larger web of being. Entanglement is no longer simply a property of particles. It becomes an invitation to consider our awareness as part of a living, responsive, and endlessly intricate cosmos. Having reflected on the subtle resonance of awareness, we now step into a realm where science and mysticism appear to echo one another, tracing the same quiet threads through different languages. Long before microscopes, fMRIs, and particle accelerators, humans sought to understand the nature of consciousness through introspection, ritual, and observation of the natural world. Ancient cultures approached the mystery not as a puzzle to solve, but as a landscape to wander within, a living map of inner space. Imagine a yogi in India, sitting, cross-legged beneath a canopy of stars, eyes closed, listening not to words but to the rhythm of the breath, the hum of existence itself. In the Upanishads, the Atman, the Self, was said to be identical with Brahman, the boundless consciousness permeating the cosmos. The individual was not separate from the whole. Awareness was both personal and universal, flowing across the landscape of mind and world simultaneously. Across mountains in China, Taoist sages spoke of an infinite current weaving through all things. They described life as a dynamic flow, a dance of subtle energies connecting humans, rivers, winds, and mountains. In the dense jungles of the Andes and the Amazon, shamans attuned themselves to plants, stars, and spirits. Their rituals, ceremonies, and visions were not superstitions, but attempts to map and interact with consciousness as it moved through all aspects of life. Every leaf, every stone, every pulse of wind was alive, aware, part of a continuous network. These maps were not drawn on paper or recorded with instruments. They were sketched in perception, in experience, in attention trained to detect patterns invisible to the eye but palpable to the inner senses. The mystics learned to dwell in awareness, to recognize the field in which self and world intersect, to sense a subtle interconnection that binds all life. Their tools were silence, repetition, and attentive presence. Their laboratory was the mind itself. Now let us softly fold in the modern voice of physics. Quantum mechanics, at its most precise, reveals a universe that is interconnected in ways that our senses cannot directly perceive. Particles influence one another across distances, their states entwined in patterns that defy classical separation. Reality, at its foundation, is a web of possibilities that only becomes definite through interaction. The metaphors of mystics and the observations of physicists begin to shimmer together. One speaks of unity through experience, the other through precise experimentation. Two paths, two vocabularies, converging on the same elusive landscape. Imagine yourself stepping between these perspectives. In one hand, you hold a delicate microscope, tracing the paths of photons, electrons, and waves. In the other, You hold the quiet attentiveness of meditation, sensing subtle patterns in breath, thought, and emotion. The ancient and modern converge, offering complementary insights. The world is alive, interconnected, and responsive, whether observed by consciousness or measured by science. This is not to suggest that quantum physics validates every mystical claim, nor that meditation can collapse a wave function. It is rather a gentle invitation to see the resonance. The universe is complex, interactive, and threaded with subtle connections. Awareness participates in reality in ways that feel natural and profound, even if we cannot yet measure or predict them precisely. The act of noticing, of observing, of attending becomes a bridge linking our inner experience with the external patterns of the cosmos. Consider an analogy. A musician tuning an instrument in a quiet room. Each string vibrates in harmony with the others, creating a field of resonance. The musician's attention shapes the sound, yet the strings themselves respond according to physical laws. So too, consciousness may operate within a web of interaction, a field of subtle correlations, responding to the world while subtly influencing the perception of that world. The parallels between mysticism and physics become a story of resonance and participation, a dance in which observer and observed are entwined. Even the smallest, most subtle experiences hint at this interconnection. A parent instinctively senses a child's presence across a room. Two friends share a glance, knowing something unspoken. A quiet thought seems to ripple outward, touching the hearts of those near and far. These are everyday whispers of a non-local field of awareness, a poetic echo of the quantum threads that physicists describe in precise mathematical terms. By holding both perspectives gently, we begin to understand a deeper truth. Consciousness is neither only within the brain nor floating abstractly in the ether. It is experienced as awareness, flowing through life, noticing, resonating, and connecting. Mystics called it oneness. Physicists call it non-locality. And perhaps softly we see the same thread, weaving the fabric of inner and outer reality together. So let us rest in this thought for a moment. Close your eyes and feel the rhythm of your own breath, the subtle movement of thought, the quiet field of attention in which you reside. Imagine that this field stretches beyond your body, linking with the pulse of the world, touching atoms, stars, and unseen connections. In this space, the language of mysticism and the language of physics merge, hinting at a universe alive, aware, and infinitely subtle, a living map of consciousness waiting to be explored. As we continue to wander through the landscape of inner and outer experience, let us allow ourselves to consider a bold, gentle possibility, that the universe itself is not simply a backdrop for events, but a living, breathing presence, intimately tied to the awareness it contains. In the same way that a symphony is alive through the interplay of instruments and the attention of listeners, perhaps reality is enlivened through participation, through the quiet noticing that consciousness brings. Across cultures and centuries, humans have sensed this. Mystics spoke of the cosmos as boundless awareness, of rivers, mountains, stars, and winds as entities with subtle presence, woven together in a living web. In India, the Upanishads named it Brahman, the infinite all-encompassing consciousness in which all things reside. Taoist sages describe the currents of life as flowing through everything, connecting body, mind, and world in a seamless dance. Indigenous shamans moved with the spirits of the earth and sky, sensing the rhythm of life in a way that could not be captured by instruments or equations. They were mapping the unseen field of being, attuned to what science might now call a network of information, energy, and subtle resonance. Modern physics, too, whispers of a similar wonder. The entanglement of particles across space, the non-locality that links distant objects, the subtle collapses of waves into points of reality. These reveal a universe far stranger, and more interconnected than classical intuition allows. Each measurement, each interaction, each act of observation is a soft participation in the emergence of form. Reality does not simply unfold independently, it responds to the network of interactions that define it. In this sense, consciousness, the simple act of noticing, may be quietly entwined with the world itself. Picture standing beneath a vast night sky. Stars gleam across unimaginable distances, each one a blazing testament to time, energy, and matter. Yet between them, the darkness hums with invisible structure. Fields, forces, possibilities. Perhaps awareness itself is a subtle thread woven through that expanse, connecting the observer with the observed, linking one consciousness to another, creating an ongoing resonance that is felt but not measured. Like the gentle vibration of a tuning fork sending ripples through the air, our presence participates in the unfolding of reality, soft but undeniably present. Let us consider the metaphor of a painter again. Imagine a vast canvas that stretches beyond sight, filled with outlines, sketches, and shadowy potentials. The painter begins to add strokes, gently shaping forms, defining spaces, revealing patterns that were previously indistinct. Each stroke is guided not only by intent but by the canvas itself, which responds to pressure, texture, and light. Consciousness in this view is like the painter and the observer simultaneously, participating in a dynamic interplay, not commanding it, but shaping it through attention, noticing, and presence. The idea that the universe is alive is not meant as dogma, nor as a literal claim that stars think or rivers dream. It is a gentle hypothesis. That awareness, ours, and perhaps the subtle field of being, resonates through matter and energy in ways that shape experience, meaning, and the unfolding of events. In this perspective, the distinction between subject and object softens. You're not merely an observer, you're a participant in the story of the cosmos. Ancient traditions capture this beautifully in rituals and stories. The shamans of the Andes speak of the mountain as alive, as listening, as guiding. The rivers, forests, and winds are not inert. They pulse with subtle life, shaping human experience while being shaped in return. In modern laboratories, photons and electrons display an analogous responsiveness. They exist in multiple possibilities until interaction brings them into definition. Two ways of seeing converge, one poetic, one precise, but both hinting at a universe that is dynamic, interconnected, and subtly alive. Now extend this thought softly to human experience. Every glance, every act of noticing, every gentle focus on what is present becomes part of the ongoing interaction between awareness and reality. Consciousness, in this vision, is not a guest that arrived late, but a subtle foundation of the universe itself. The acts of attention, reflection, and feeling ripple outward, influencing the web of being in ways too delicate to measure, yet felt in the quiet resonance of experience. In this reflective space, we may glimpse a vision where the boundaries between mind and matter blur. Mountains, stars, rivers, and forests are not just objects to be measured or admired. They are participants in a living dynamic field as we are. Awareness is everywhere, subtle and persistent, guiding, resonating, observing. The universe becomes not a machine, but a tapestry of interaction, alive in every corner, every particle, every fleeting moment of noticing. As we pause in this thought, let us carry with us a gentle sense of reverence. The world is complex, subtle, and responsive. Consciousness participates, not by force or decree, but by being present, by attending, by noticing the dance of existence unfolding around and within us. Reality is not passive and awareness is not incidental. The universe may be alive and we may be threads within its gentle, ongoing symphony, soft but essential, shaping and resonating with the unfolding of all things. Now, let us step into a vision of reality that stretches beyond the boundaries of everyday perception, into a world where space, time, and matter are not quite as solid as they appear. Imagine holding a hologram in your hands, a three-dimensional image that seems to occupy space, yet it emerges entirely from a flat two-dimensional surface. Every part of the hologram contains the whole image, so that even if you cut it in half, each piece still carries the information of the entire scene. This is a helpful metaphor for what some modern physicists call the holographic principle, the idea that the information that makes up our three-dimensional reality may, in some sense, be encoded on a distant two-dimensional boundary. Reality, in other words, might be like a projection, vivid and convincing, yet arising from a deeper layer that we do not directly see. The roots of this principle trace back to the study of black holes. For decades, physicists puzzled over a startling paradox. When something falls into a black hole, it seems that all the information it carries is lost forever, swallowed by the void. But theories developed by Bekenstein, Hawking, and later Susskind revealed a remarkable insight. Information does not vanish. It is preserved, not in the three-dimensional heart of the black hole, but etched onto its surface, on the horizon that defines the boundary between the inside and the outside. The universe, it seems, has a way of keeping track, of ensuring that nothing is truly erased. It is as if the cosmos itself is a ledger, recording every particle, every interaction, in a subtle, eternal way. Now let us gently extend this to life, to awareness, to the sense of self. If reality can be projected from information on a boundary, might our own experience be similarly layered? Could the thoughts, feelings, and consciousness that we hold be projections of a deeper informational field, softly shaping the world we inhabit? In this metaphorical vision, life is like a light cast on the screen, vivid, tangible, and moving, yet originating from a source we cannot fully touch. Perhaps our existence is not lost at death, but returns to the underlying field, like a note returning to the symphony it briefly left. Awareness, like information in a holographic universe, endures in ways both subtle and profound, rippling across layers we do not directly perceive. This idea can also help us consider the nature of observation. In the holographic view, the universe is not a static, indifferent stage. It is a dynamic projection, responsive to the patterns of interaction that occur within it. Just as the holographic image only resolves when illuminated by light, reality emerges into clarity through observation and participation. Consciousness does not force matter into existence, yet it may play a soft, gentle role in anchoring experience, in shaping the clarity of the unfolding world. Every act of attention, every moment of noticing is like focusing a light on the projected scene, allowing details to emerge, allowing possibilities to collapse into form. Let us also consider death in this context. If life is a projection, the end of the body is not necessarily the end of awareness. Perhaps the projection fades, the layer we inhabit dissolves, but the underlying information, the source code if you will, remains. Consciousness, like the patterns etched on the surface of a black hole, persists in subtle ways, awaiting recombination, re-emergence, or transformation. The mind, then, is not a fragile flame extinguished at the edge of existence. It is part of a greater tapestry, woven into the fabric of reality itself. In this quiet contemplation, we can picture ourselves as both observer and participant, watching the projection unfold and softly shaping it through attention. Reality, like a hologram, is responsive, layered, and interconnected. The stars above, the river flowing below, the warmth of a hand, the quiet pulse of thought, all are threads in a delicate, shimmering tapestry that transcends the solid forms we perceive. Awareness interacts with this tapestry not through force, but through subtle presence, gentle noticing, and the simple act of being. The holographic metaphor also invites humility. We are not the creators of reality in any literal sense, nor do we fully control the patterns of the universe. Instead, we are participants in a layered, responsive cosmos, witnessing and engaging with a projection that is at once both real and mysterious. It is a dance between possibility and perception, between what is observed and what is quietly potential. And in this dance, we are both part and witness, threads in the fabric and fingers tracing its contours, shaping the unfolding story in ways subtle, delicate, and infinitely intertwined. So as we sit quietly, imagining this holographic tapestry, we may allow a sense of wonder to settle around us. Life, consciousness, and the universe itself are not fixed, isolated, or inert. They are patterns emerging from a deeper layer, projected into the space of experience, shaped by interaction, observation, and attention. And while we cannot see the entirety of this layer, we can feel its resonance, like the hum of strings beneath a symphony, or the quiet vibration of light through water. Reality is alive in its projection, and in that living projection, we too are softly, gently present. As we leave the holographic vision behind, let us drift gently into another way of contemplating reality. The notion that our experience of the universe may resemble a dream, a rendered story unfolding around us. Philosophers and physicists alike have sometimes suggested that reality is not fixed, but is continuously shaped by the interactions and observations within it. Imagine for a moment that the world you perceive is like a beautifully detailed simulation, not in the technological sense of a video game, but as a conceptual lens for understanding how awareness and reality intertwine. In this vision, the universe is a living narrative, constantly unfolding, and each consciousness participates as a reader, a witness, and a subtle co-author. Every glance you cast, every quiet noticing, every moment of attention softens the edges of possibility, allowing one thread of the cosmic story to solidify. The double-slit experiment, the entanglement of distant particles, the gentle collapses of wave functions, these are not just mathematical curiosities. They are reminders that observation and interaction are integral to the emergence of what we call reality. And in our own lives, every act of noticing, every presence, may ripple outward into this living story in ways both subtle and profound. This perspective echoes ancient wisdom. In India, the concept of Maya described the world as an illusion, a luminous projection in which consciousness moves, learns, and evolves. The world is real, yes, yet layered, ephemeral, and interwoven with awareness. Taoist texts convey a similar idea. The currents of life, flowing invisibly, guide and shape experience, blending observer and observed. Across the Andes and Amazon, shamans recognize that the act of paying attention, of entering the world attentively, shapes reality in subtle, reverent ways. Here, science and mysticism converge, softly, suggesting that awareness is not separate from the unfolding cosmos, but entwined with it. Imagine sitting quietly, perhaps watching the night sky. The stars stretch across vast distances, their light ancient, their patterns steady yet subtly shifting. Consider that each observation you make, each awareness you hold, may be part of the universe noticing itself. Reality is not inert. It waits, it responds, and it unfolds differently in each instant of engagement. It is as if the universe is a canvas, and consciousness, even in its quietest form, is a brush tracing gentle, unseen strokes across the expanse. Now, let us bring in the gentle metaphor of the simulation, softly guiding it toward reflection on life and mortality. Perhaps death is not a final shutdown, but a transition between layers of projection, a subtle shift in the focus of awareness. Imagine stepping away from a projector. The images on the screen fade, but the light and source remain. Perhaps consciousness, like the projector, persists even as the body and its immediate experiences dissolve. In this way, death can be seen not as an end, but as a soft awakening into the deeper field from which the projection arose. The you that existed in the layer of lived experience may continue, gently rejoining the tapestry, ready to emerge anew in forms we cannot yet perceive. This vision is not meant to insist that our thoughts literally create the stars, nor that life itself is a coded program. Rather, it invites a reflection on the subtle, participatory nature of being. Each act of attention, each recognition of the world around us is an engagement with the unfolding narrative of reality. In contemplating this, we allow ourselves to see life as a gentle dance between awareness and experience, between perception and possibility. The world is a dream, vivid and unfolding, and we're among its dreamers, noticing, attending and participating. Imagine now that the dream is multi-layered. The choices we make, the interactions we have, the moments of connection with others, all are threads that weave through the story. In the same way that a composer layers harmonies to create music that resonates, consciousness weaves together experience and perception, shaping the unfolding of events without overriding the underlying structure. We are not the programmers, but we are not mere spectators either. Our attention, our awareness, is part of the gentle act of rendering, the quiet shaping of form and meaning. Consider the soft, poetic question. If the player never dies, if consciousness is continuous beyond the projection of a single life, what does it mean to begin again? Perhaps beginnings and endings are not strict boundaries, but transitions within a larger ongoing flow. Each moment, each life, is a thread in the infinite weave, a wave cresting briefly in a field that persists and endures. Love, memory, awareness. These are echoes that ripple across the projection, linking past, present and future in ways subtle, unseen, yet profoundly real in the fabric of experience. And so, we can rest for a moment in this vision, allowing the mind to drift gently across the layers of reality, imagining life as a luminous, participatory dream. The universe is not a machine moving inexorably toward a fixed end. It is alive in its unfolding, attentive to interaction, and subtly shaped by the presence of awareness. Our consciousness, like a quiet shining note in a symphony, participates in the story, observes and perhaps, in ways beyond our comprehension, co-creates the narrative we inhabit. In this soft reflection, we glimpse the gentle possibility that reality, in all its wonder, is both mirror and dream, and that we, quietly, are both witnesses and participants. As we leave the soft dream of the universe, let us turn gently toward life's most profound mystery, death. In our everyday perception, the end of a body feels like a full stop, a closing of the door. Yet modern physics, paired with thoughtful reflection on consciousness, invites a subtler, more expansive view. What if information, the patterns that define experience, awareness, and life itself, never truly vanishes? Consider the work of physicists exploring the microscopic underpinnings of consciousness. Roger Penrose and Stuart Hameroff suggest that inside brain cells, tiny structures called microtubules may host quantum waves. These delicate vibrations could, in principle, weave together the moments of awareness, creating a continuity that extends beyond the ordinary flow of neurons. This is ORC-OR, the orchestrated objective reduction theory, but we need not dwell on formulas or technical terms. Imagine it as a gentle hum inside the fabric of the brain, a rhythm that resonates quietly, softly holding the essence of conscious experience. Now imagine what happens when the body ceases. The heart stops, the lungs empty, the neurons quiet. Classical intuition tells us that all is lost, that experience vanishes. But in the quantum view, information does not simply disappear. Just as a note played on a piano does not vanish into silence, but leaves a subtle echo in the room, the information that composed your consciousness may return to the larger field of reality. It might dissolve, transform, and re-emerge in ways we cannot yet measure. Awareness, then, is not extinguished but reabsorbed, a note returning to the symphony it briefly left. Time itself may behave differently at these scales. Julian Barber, a physicist who studies timeless physics, imagines moments as patterns in a vast, unchanging landscape. In this view, death is not a final cessation, but a subtle shift in the frame of experience, a transition within a broader field of timeless possibilities. Past, present, and future are woven together in loops, knots, and spirals. Consciousness, gently considered, may move along these loops, carrying with it echoes of experience, memory, and identity. The implications for how we view memory are remarkable. Experiences once encoded in the brain are not simply lost. Quantum information suggests that the structures of awareness may persist, entwined with the universe itself. While we cannot yet measure or retrieve these patterns, the poetic resonance remains. What is gone in one layer may continue to exist in another, waiting for conditions to align, to re-emerge, or to transform. It is as if consciousness flows like water, slipping quietly back into the ocean, mingling with currents far larger than any individual wave. This gentle vision provides a soft bridge between physics and the contemplative traditions of humanity. Mystics have long spoken of the soul returning to a source, of awareness flowing beyond the confines of a single body. In India, the concept of rebirth imagines life as a cycle of emergence, dissolution, and re-emergence. In the Andes, shamans perceive the spirit of individuals as weaving into a larger tapestry, appearing again and again in new forms. Modern physics, without claiming literal reincarnation, suggests an analogous continuity. Information, the essential patterns of experience, may endure quietly and subtly beyond the cessation of the body. To visualize this, imagine a single drop of water falling into the ocean. The drop blends with the sea, its shape dissolving, yet the water itself continues. The drop's journey is not lost. It becomes part of something larger, its molecules mingling with currents that stretch across vast distances. Consciousness may be like that drop, ephemeral in form, yet enduring in substance, flowing into a field that supports and connects all awareness. Even in daily life, we catch glimpses of this continuity. Memories that linger beyond time, feelings that ripple across generations, connections that defy distance. These may be echoes of a deeper field of awareness. Science cannot yet fully account for them, but the metaphor is rich. The universe may be a vast symphony of information, each conscious life a note, each memory a subtle vibration returning to the source. And so, as we reflect softly on the impermanence of the body, we're invited to consider a deeper permanence. Life, awareness, and experience are not confined to a single moment or form. They are threads woven into the larger tapestry of reality, echoing across time, space, and the quantum sea. In this gentle vision, death is not an erasure but a transformation, a flowing return to the field from which awareness arises. Having contemplated the subtle persistence of information after death, let us gently explore a vision that extends across multiple possibilities, the idea that consciousness may participate in a vast network of realities, a branching, ever-unfolding cosmos. In modern physics, the many worlds interpretation suggests that every choice, every event, produces a divergence, a new branch of the universe where one possibility is realized while others unfold in parallel. Imagine it not as abstract mathematics, but as a soft landscape of existence, where each moment is a gentle fork in an infinite path, each outcome a note in a vast symphony of possibility. In this vision, consciousness may not be tied to a single branch. It could, perhaps, ripple across multiple threads, participating in different forms of experience simultaneously. Each life, each decision, is like a wave cresting briefly, appearing in a particular pattern before dispersing into the wider field. This invites a poetic reflection on reincarnation. Perhaps what cultures have long called rebirth is a soft expression of the universe's branching nature, a gentle continuation of awareness along different paths, not constrained to a single timeline. Consider the meticulous studies of Ian Stevenson and Jim Tucker, who collected thousands of accounts of past life memories in children. These are quiet catalogues of memory without brains, patterns of experience appearing in new forms, resonant echoes of lives that may have preceded this one. While science cannot yet confirm reincarnation or trace these memories in measurable ways, the stories evoke a sense of continuity, a thread connecting individual consciousness to a larger tapestry. In our narrative, these examples are not proof, but inspiration, gentle hints that awareness might extend beyond a single embodied life, woven across multiple experiences and realities. To visualize this, imagine entangled particles, separated across vast distances, yet moving in subtle coordination. Now, think of consciousness as similarly entangled, not in a mystical sense, but as a poetic metaphor for connection across possibilities. Each mind, each awareness, may be a note that appears in different harmonics, sometimes aligned, sometimes diverging, yet always part of the same overarching field. Every choice, every action, every quiet act of noticing may ripple outward, influencing the unfolding pattern in ways imperceptible, yet real. In daily life, we feel echoes of this connectivity, a moment of déjà vu, an intuition about someone far away, or a sudden recognition of patterns across different experiences. These may be subtle reflections of entanglement in consciousness. Love, memory, and connection may not be confined to a single life or a single branch. They may persist, reweaving across possibilities, carrying the resonance of past awareness into new forms, creating a continuity that is gentle, quiet, and enduring. This vision also softens our relationship with endings. If consciousness moves through a branching cosmos, then death may not be a full stop, but a transition from one pattern to another. Awareness may continue in forms we cannot yet perceive, participating in new experiences while retaining echoes of previous ones. In this way, the threads of life, memory, and connection are never truly severed. They are braided, intertwined, and persistent across a vast, ever-expanding field. Consider a quiet analogy. A single note played in a symphony does not vanish when the musician stops bowing the string. Its resonance lingers, blending with other notes, influencing the texture of the music as it continues to unfold. So too may consciousness be, each life, each experience, a note in the eternal symphony whose vibrations persist in ways both subtle and profound. Love, insight, joy, and sorrow are not lost. They ripple outward, returning softly to the field, awaiting recombination or re-expression. In contemplating this, we find a gentle reassurance. The universe is not rigid, and consciousness is not confined. Each act of attention, each choice, each reflection is part of a larger, branching, interconnected process. Reality is alive, fluid, and expansive, and we, quietly and gently, are participants within it. Perhaps this is the essence of the many worlds vision. Not merely mathematics, but a poetic expression of continuity, resilience, and connection, where awareness gently weaves through the infinite landscape of possibility. And so, as we rest in this thought, let us carry forward the comforting sense that love, connection, and awareness do not unravel. They reweave across the tapestry of existence, linking past, present and future, individual and collective, observer and observed. In the quiet folds of the cosmos, consciousness continues, softly, gently, persistently, participating in the infinite dance of reality. Having explored the vast branching cosmos of consciousness, let us return gently to the quiet witness inside each of us. There is a part of your awareness that has always been present, unchanging beneath the flow of thoughts, emotions and experiences. From the moment you first opened your eyes as a child to the quiet reflection of this very moment, it has observed, noticed, and lingered. Neuroscience may insist that this self is entirely the product of neurons firing, chemical interactions, and brain patterns. Yet when we attend to the quality of awareness itself, we find something older, quieter, and more persistent than the flesh and the synapses, a steady presence, a witness that does not age or fade, that notices without judgment. That simply is. This inner witness, at once personal and elusive, invites us to consider a profound question. Might it not be entirely individual? Many mystical traditions have long suggested a shared dimension of consciousness. In India, Brahman is described as universal awareness, present within each individual yet boundless and indivisible. Christian mystics spoke of an uncreated light shining before the first dawn, a constant presence that permeates all things. The Taoists imagined an infinite current flowing through every life, connecting all forms in a harmonious unseen dance. In these traditions, the self is both personal and universal, distinct yet inseparable from the whole, like a single thread in a vast, luminous tapestry. Picture it gently, one light shining through countless windows. Each window is an individual mind, each glance a unique perspective, yet the light itself flows unbroken, connecting all. Our inner witness, the quiet observer, may be like this light, shared, continuous, and present across the multiplicity of beings. In attending to it, we glimpse the possibility that awareness is not merely confined to the body or brain, but extends softly into the field of being itself. This perspective does not require grand metaphysical claims, nor does it contradict the findings of neuroscience. Instead, it frames them gently, offering a bridge between the measurable world of neurons and the felt world of experience. The brain is a remarkable instrument supporting the patterns of thought, emotion, and perception. Yet awareness, the simple noticing, the witness of all experience, seems to exist in a dimension that cannot be fully mapped or measured. It is here, in this quiet space, that we meet the possibility that consciousness may participate in reality in ways subtle, profound, and persistent. Imagine standing in a quiet room, a candle flickering in the center. The flame dances softly, responding to currents of air and light. Your awareness is like a gentle light surrounding the flame, observing its movement, feeling its warmth, and yet not controlling it. You notice the flicker, and in noticing, you are connected to it. Your attention resonates with the delicate rhythms unfolding before you. In the same way, consciousness may engage with the universe, observing, resonating, participating, without forcing, without directing, but softly, gently entwined with all that it perceives. Consider too that this shared awareness may underlie the subtle, intangible connections we feel with others. Moments of empathy, intuition, and deep resonance are glimpses of this wider field. A glance shared across a room, a sudden understanding of another's unspoken feelings, a quiet intuition about events beyond immediate perception. These may be reflections of the same presence, softly linking individual awareness into a larger harmonious whole. Consciousness in this sense is not isolated. It is a participant in a vast, responsive and interconnected field. As we hold this vision, we begin to see that the boundaries between self and universe are softer than they appear. The observer is not merely contained within a single body. Awareness itself may be an ongoing, gently flowing presence, interacting with and permeating the patterns of existence. Each perception, each act of noticing is a gentle engagement, a ripple in the quiet field that underlies all forms of being. The universe is not indifferent. It is observed, attended, and subtly shaped by the act of awareness. In closing this reflection, we rest in the quiet thought that the light shining through you is not entirely your own, nor entirely separate. It is shared, continuous, and intertwined with the cosmos. The witness within you is both singular and collective, ancient and ever-present. It is the gentle thread that links self to world, body to mind, moment to moment. And in noticing this, we catch a glimpse of the extraordinary possibility that consciousness is, in soft and quiet ways, inseparable from the unfolding of reality itself. Having lingered with the inner witness, we can now turn outward to a broader, gentle contemplation. What if consciousness is not only within the universe, but the universe itself is, in a soft, subtle way, within consciousness? Inverting our usual perspective, we imagine reality not as a backdrop for observation, but as a canvas upon which awareness paints, not with force, but with presence. Every act of noticing, every moment of reflection, contributes to the unfolding, creating patterns that are as much a part of the observer as of the observed. Modern physics whispers of ideas that align with this vision. Carlo Rovelli, for instance, suggests that space and time may not be fundamental, but emergent from the deeper patterns of information in the universe. What we perceive as the steady flow of moments may instead be a story woven from countless interactions, each subtle, each soft, each contributing to the tapestry of reality. Time itself may be less a river than a flexible fabric, bending around awareness, looping, folding and stretching in ways our senses cannot fully grasp. Imagine a painter with a vast empty canvas. The brush moves not alone, but in dialogue with the surface itself. Each stroke interacts with textures, pigments, and the faint hum of light and shadow. The resulting image is a dance between painter and canvas, a collaboration in which both shape and respond to one another. So too, perhaps, is consciousness entwined with the cosmos. The observer notices, the universe responds, and the pattern that emerges is a gentle collaboration, a living composition of awareness and reality. In this view, the universe is not inert, nor is consciousness passive. The two are interwoven. The stars that twinkle across the sky, the rivers that flow silently through valleys, the soft rustle of leaves in a quiet forest, all of it participates in a subtle dance with attention. As we notice, we anchor, we illuminate, and we gently shape the emergent pattern of reality. The cosmos, in this sense, looks back not as judgment, but as a reflection, a resonance of our presence within it. Consider an analogy from everyday life. Walking through a quiet garden at dawn, the flowers bloom in silence, the dew shimmers softly, the air hums with the unseen activity of insects and breeze. Your attention, gentle and observing, seems to heighten the sense of presence in the scene. You notice the texture of a petal, the sparkle of a droplet, the hush of a soft wind. In that noticing there is participation, a subtle acknowledgement, a co-creation of the felt experience. Now, imagine this extended across the cosmos, consciousness and reality entwined, observer and observed co-dancing across scales, from the smallest particle to the most distant star. This perspective invites a poetic humility. We do not dominate the universe. We do not control the flow of matter, energy, or time. Instead, we are participants in a gentle, responsive field, noticing, attending, and resonating with patterns that are already present. Each observation becomes a brushstroke in a cosmic painting, each moment of awareness a note in the ongoing symphony of existence. The interplay is subtle, often imperceptible, yet infinitely real in the fabric of being. Extending this thought to consciousness itself, we can reflect on the idea that the universe may be aware through the attention of countless beings. Every sentient presence, every gentle noticing, may contribute to a soft, collective unfolding. The cosmos is not cold or indifferent. It participates in its own emergence, expressed through the multiplicity of observers within it. Awareness and reality are not separate. They are two sides of the same luminous thread, gently weaving the fabric of experience, softly interdependent, and continuously shaping the contours of what becomes. As we sit quietly with this vision, we can sense the universe not as a distant stage, but as a mirror reflecting our own presence. The awareness that observes is inseparable from the awareness that is observed. Time, space, and matter are not inert substances. They are subtle expressions of a deeper interplay, a responsive field in which consciousness and reality co-emerge. This is not a claim to mystical power, but an invitation to notice, to dwell gently, and to participate softly in the unfolding pattern of existence. And so, we conclude this reflection with a calm recognition. The universe is a living, responsive canvas, and our awareness is entwined with it. We are both observers and participants, noticing, resonating, and quietly co-creating the dance of reality. Each thought, each glance, each soft act of attention is a gentle ripple across the fabric of being, a reminder that the cosmos is alive not only outside of us, but within the quiet pulse of our own awareness. Having explored the intertwined dance of consciousness and the cosmos, we now pause to consider the limits of our understanding. Science offers remarkable insight into the patterns of matter, energy, and life. Yet there remain questions that stretch beyond the reach of our instruments and equations. Can awareness collapse the wave of possibilities in the universe? Does consciousness persist beyond the end of a body? These are not questions science can yet answer, and perhaps, in acknowledging that, we find a gentle wisdom. Not knowing can be its own kind of knowing. In the modern scientific community, voices of caution remind us of the boundaries. Physicists such as Sean Carroll emphasize that quantum mechanics does not require consciousness to produce definite outcomes. Experiments show that interactions between particles, fields, and measuring devices suffice to collapse superpositions. OR, many worlds interpretations, and quantum information theories offer fascinating possibilities, but none has yet provided empirical proof that human awareness itself drives the collapse of possibilities or navigates multiple realities. This is not a denial of wonder, but a recognition of humility, a soft, careful acknowledgement that speculation, while beautiful, is not evidence. Yet even in this uncertainty there is a quiet invitation. To stand at the edge of understanding is not to despair, but to feel awe. Imagine standing on the shore of a vast, silent ocean at twilight. You can hear its distant waves, feel the rhythm under your feet, but cannot see its depths. That is the edge of knowledge, and it is not frightening. It is a place for quiet curiosity, a space where wonder can unfold naturally. In this liminal space, the mind is free to explore gently, to imagine, to contemplate the interconnections that science hints at, without claiming mastery or certainty. Consider the many phenomena we have touched on: entangled particles responding across vast distances, the collapse of superposed states, the branching of possible realities in the many worlds vision, or the persistence of information in holographic projections. Each of these suggests a world that is subtler, more intricate, and more responsive than ordinary experience suggests. Yet in every case we must hold the speculation lightly, separating poetic metaphor from measurable fact. We may imagine consciousness as entwined with the cosmos, as a gentle wave threading through the universe, but we do so with care, honouring the boundaries between imagination and verified knowledge. This gentle balance between curiosity and humility is itself a form of wisdom. To lean into the unknown without insisting on certainty is to participate in the unfolding of understanding in a way that is both reflective and respectful. It is to allow the mind to wander, to feel the pulse of possibility, to trace the quiet patterns of awareness without needing to assert dominance or claim ownership. In this soft way, we begin to appreciate that questions are sometimes more valuable than answers, that the mystery itself can be nourishing and calming. Even in everyday life, this approach can guide us. When faced with uncertainty, when observing a pattern we cannot explain, or a moment that stretches beyond our comprehension, we can respond with gentle attention rather than judgment. We can watch, reflect, and allow curiosity to lead, just as we would watch waves ripple across an unseen ocean. By doing so, we cultivate a kind of engagement with reality that is both mindful and expansive, embracing the unknown without fear. In contemplating consciousness and reality at the edges of scientific understanding, we also cultivate a connection with wonder that is intimate and immediate. Every glance at the stars, every quiet act of noticing, every soft reflection on life and death becomes part of a subtle dialogue between awareness and the cosmos. We do not need to solve the mysteries, measure them fully, or claim control. We need only observe, imagine, and participate gently in the ongoing story of existence. And so, standing at this edge, we find a quiet reassurance. The limits of evidence do not diminish the richness of experience. They invite us to dwell in awe, to trace the contours of wonder, and to feel the resonance of consciousness in the universe. Speculation, when held lightly and reverently, becomes a way to inhabit mystery rather than conquer it. The mind may wander through possibilities, gently touching the unseen threads of reality, while knowing that the ultimate answers may remain beyond reach. In this quiet reflection, we can rest, allowing the tension between knowledge and mystery to settle into a calm rhythm. Uncertainty becomes a space of engagement, a soft horizon where imagination, attention, and awareness meet. And in this space, we may glimpse a subtle truth, that not knowing is not failure, but a form of wisdom, a gentle, patient acknowledgement that the universe is more intricate and more alive than our minds can fully grasp. As we reach the quiet conclusion of our journey, let us rest gently in a meditation on presence, awareness, and the enduring pulse of consciousness. We have wandered through the landscapes of the mind, through particles and waves, through branching realities and the subtle patterns that may persist beyond life. Now it is time to sit in stillness and consider the constancy of the awareness that observes it all, the soft, luminous thread that never vanishes, never dims, and never leaves. From the very first moment of attention to this quiet reflection, the inner witness has been present. It is the voice inside your head, the calm observer behind thought, the unchanging awareness that notices joy, sorrow, wonder, and curiosity. This presence, timeless and persistent, connects all of the threads we've traced, from the flicker of particles in superposition to the subtle resonance of entanglement to the poetic vision of a universe alive with awareness. It is neither confined to your body nor entirely separate from the cosmos. It is at once personal and universal, intimate and infinite. Imagine, for a moment, that this awareness is like a gentle light threading through a vast, darkened space. It illuminates softly, touching each particle, each experience, each memory. Yet it does not force, it does not overwhelm. The stars, the rivers, the mountains, the quiet moments of reflection, they are all seen through this light, and in seeing, they are acknowledged, noticed, and softly held. The observer and the observed are not separate. They are part of the same luminous field, dancing in gentle reciprocity. Consider again the metaphor of a symphony. Every note played is fleeting, yet the music endures. Each instrument contributes to the unfolding harmony, and each note resonates, blending with the others in a wave of sound that is both transient and eternal. Awareness is like that resonance. It witnesses each moment of life, participates in the unfolding of events, and continues quietly, even when forms change, even when bodies fade, even when the lights of stars are long extinguished. The pulse of consciousness remains, the soft underlying rhythm that holds the symphony together. We can also think of this presence as the quiet observer of dreams. As you drift between sleep and waking, the mind conjures images, sensations, and narratives. In the still space between thoughts, the awareness that watches the dreaming self continues unbroken. It is the same presence that notices the flicker of a candle, the rustle of leaves, the quiet motion of time itself. This continuity, subtle and delicate, is the thread that links all experiences, all lives, all possibilities. It is a light that never left, softly guiding, quietly observing, endlessly present. Even when considering the vast branching cosmos, the interconnected web of entangled possibilities, the cycles of life and death, this awareness remains gentle and constant. The universe may unfold in countless ways, new realities branching like streams from a river, particles dancing in the waves of potential, consciousness moving softly through layers of existence. Yet the observer remains, the silent, patient presence that notices, that perceives, that gently participates in the ongoing story without forcing, without demanding, without needing control. There is a comforting rhythm in recognizing this presence. In the flow of experience, in the quiet observation of life, we find a subtle reassurance. Though moments pass, though forms change, though mysteries endure, the light of awareness continues. It is not dependent on any single body, any single life, or any single observation. It exists in a continuity that transcends the ephemeral, a soft undercurrent that carries the echoes of all that has been and all that may be. As this reflection deepens, we can return to the quiet images that have accompanied us through this journey. The voice inside, the drop of water in the ocean, the branching paths of possibility, the gentle light threading through windows, the symphony of moments, the rhythm of attention. All these are expressions of the same underlying presence. Awareness is both the lens and the light, the witness and the subtle participant, softly guiding the unfolding story of reality without needing to impose. And in the final stillness, we may realize something profound yet simple. You're not here to find the light. You are the light. The awareness that has accompanied you through this exploration, the quiet observer that notices, participates, and endures, is itself luminous, persistent, and integral to the fabric of existence. In each gentle act of noticing, each soft reflection, each moment of attention, you are participating in a cosmic symphony, a tapestry that extends far beyond what is immediately visible, and you are both thread and loom, note and resonance, observer and observed. So as this meditation concludes, allow the words to settle softly. The journey has traced the mysteries of consciousness, the subtleties of quantum reality, the whispers of mystics, and the reflections of science. The questions remain, perhaps unresolved, yet they're part of the quiet music of being. And in that music, in that rhythm of awareness, you are present, luminous, enduring, a light that never left, softly illuminating the vast, boundless landscape of existence.